let's talk about the time you pulled me and another guy that I'll say his name and we can cut it out. Of course, I already mentioned it in the text message, so I don't really have to. But you pulled me and another guy who was an advanced guy to the side in class one time and mounted us, I guess, took turns, mounted us. And with me going first and started to throw well-executed, well-timed bombs. And I remember you telling me, and you'll have to bear with me because I was under some heavy attack. But I remember something along the lines of, you got to get out of there. Maybe a few times repeated. And there were some technical puzzles that you arranged in there and made it extremely difficult to escape. And I thought about that experience more than anything else in my whole 22 years of jiu-jitsu. Oh, wow. That one thing. So do you remember that event? And if so, what was your thought process and what other light can you shine on that big time eye-opening experience?
Usually, so that was probably a night where we, obviously we're working on combative stuff and so I do remember that. I can tell you the impetus for that was, I had just watched, I don't think it was a UFC, but it was one of the fights. And, I was disappointed in the jiu-jitsu guy who was fighting. And, man, he had gotten mounted and, he's fighting another jiu-jitsu guy. And he had gotten mounted and he really didn't appear to know how to block punches from the mount. And, one of the things that I've said from a long, long time is that they're black belts in jiu-jitsu who've never been in a real fight, and there are certainly black belts who have not been in a bunch of fights, and which is okay. It's cool. There are guys, one of the kind of selling points that I use with jiu-jitsu is that there are people that do jiu-jitsu who they don't even want to fight. They don't like to fight. They're not fighters. Self-defense sometimes isn't even in their, top 10 list of why they're doing jiu-jitsu.
Right.
So that's okay, except for obviously this guy was, this guy was in the cage fighting and, it just didn't appear that he really had a plan to block punches. And the thing that I've always said about our academy is you don't get to train with us and lose a street fight. Like you don't get to train, you don't get to wear, my belts and not know how to fight on the street, not know how to defend yourself. And so that night, I was like, hey man, let's put the gloves on and let's just go back and kind of get back to some of the basics of jiu-jitsu and, throw some punches and let guys. And anytime I do that, right, like I'm never really trying to kill whoever I'm going with, and because it's got to be a cooperative deal. But at the same time, like we talk about all the time, man, we're not having a tea party up there. We're scrapping a little bit. So, you and Cody, y'all are fighters, you know what I mean? Like, Cody's a freaking savage too, and, likes to mix it up. And so that was kind of the impetus behind that.
So, and I remember, and tell me if this is correct. The issue that I was having is that you went straight to high mount and you used the straight back so that every time I lifted my hips, you're too far north. So you wouldn't put your hands on the ground. In the first few times, for whatever reason, it didn't register. You're too far up so that you're able to really, control your descent with punches rather than hands on the ground. So, was that indeed the crux of the problem, that you were in high mount and not, on the hip?
Yeah. So, and here's the thing, Joey, like, one of the things that we talk about is like, there are techniques. I mean, there are techniques that I can teach, that I know, that I've learned over the years, and I remember most stuff that I've ever learned. But there's stuff that I can teach that I don't ever use, that I'm not world class at, and then there's other stuff that I do all the time. So that was like with you in that situation. Yeah, it was just a situation where, like, all of a sudden I'm mounted on you. Now I'm a pad. Now I'm throwing some punches. And it's just like sensory overload, man. And so, it takes a little bit. And you see that in real fights. You see that in the octagon, where it takes just a little bit for the guy to kind of go, okay, here's what's happening, and adjust, And if I remember correctly, like, obviously that's the deal where, there's a bunch of ways that you can set up and pull me down. I think that's what I was looking for y'all to do, was to either come up and, hug me, clinch, and pull me down to get my hands to the ground, and then climb up, or a lot of guys will, just use like a knee in the lower back and bridge, knee in the lower back to get guys' hands on the ground. You got to get their hands on the ground, and so that was that. That was kind of what was going on.
In my memory, in my mind, I went through the list of every technical response. I was like a backdoor escape, a hip thrust, trap and roll, too far north, punch block variation. And it was being stifled, at least in my mind. But I think that maybe you were preventing it, that you were 100% at the beginning preventing, and then perhaps started to give a little bit more opportunities. Because I've practiced defending punches, of course, practiced escaping the mount, millions of times with people punching, thousands of times at least. And I don't remember how that thing ended, but I actually remember, basically lifting, landing on my hip, like on my side, which caused you to modify the mount a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I think that little bit of a opportunity there let me hug your back, and then that kind of led to the escape or whatever it was. But I know that was a big time eye-opening experience, because it's been, probably 2010 since a human being has held me down where I absolutely cannot escape, and they're also punching. Certainly an eye-opener.
Well, yeah, and I'll tell you this, and not, so, man, over the years, there are certain, I guess they call them like watershed moments or whatever, where you have like some kind of, somebody tells you something, or you recognize something that really kind of affects your life in different areas or whatever, and like one of the things in jiu-jitsu, bro, and I've been training for 30 years, and this was just, and I had done this to some degree prior to hearing this, but the first time I heard Conor McGregor talking about how hard he squeezes with his legs, and how much not Conor McGregor, the guy that beat him,
Nate Vitas?
No. Oh my God. Khabib.
Oh, Khabib,
yeah. Whenever he beat him, Khabib, or Habib, however you say it, I think it's Habib, he was talking about how he really focuses on squeezing so much with his legs that he doesn't need his hands, even in the high mount, that he doesn't need his hands to maintain the mount. And, I've always focused, incredibly a lot on my hooks and my hips, and I've, to a certain degree, squeeze and just kind of, an inner thigh squeeze as well in a high mount. But whenever I heard him say that, that's when I really started focusing on being able to, do it just, and it's a mind muscle link, and I can talk about that later on in some other areas, but like just keeping enough pressure inward with your thighs, squeezing your knees together when you're in the high mount, so that you keep incredible pressure on them, but you're also able to stay mounted and throw punches. You don't need your hands for hooks or, posts or whatever. So.
Right. And of course I've heard that, previously when I learned the, mount controls, that whole lesson that you don't need your hands. It's your hooks, your hips, and all that. Sorry, go ahead.
That's the deal when you're low, heavy hips and twisting your hips and hooks and super hooks and all that. But then once you set up high, you don't have those hooks anymore, and you got to just be able to. I tell you, and this is like a nerding out jiu-jitsu conversation, but like when you're up in a high mount, sitting up on their chest and up around their shoulder girdle and stuff, I'll kind of squeeze my knees together and let my feet kind of float out and really just, be sensitive to where they're moving and everything. And then everything is easy when the guy on bottom is getting punched. It just, it is so. And to your point about, you've practiced getting punched and all that kind of stuff, I 100% get that and everything. And, but everybody feels a little bit different, and I think it probably been a little while since you've done it, and then, there's just that sensitivity of kind of, feeling what the guys are going to do a little bit before they do it. And I'll tell you, and this from like when you're teaching guys, like when you're, when guys are teaching, you always have a little bit of an advantage when you kind of know what you're going to do and the student doesn't. You know what I mean? Like even a drill like that, you're not 100% sure exactly what's like. Is he fixing to try to kill me? Is he going to just come down in a mount and mount me? Or so like just even though I had gloves on, when I started throwing a few punches, I'm sure it caught you by surprise for a minute. And it just took a little while for you to get figured out.
Yeah, that was exactly the thing for the first 10, 15. I told Roger that it feels like it was like 15 minutes. That's ridiculous. But how long would you say that drill was in reality?
Joey, I'll bet you I was on top of you for like, it's going to sound crazy, but I bet you I wasn't up there more than 5 to 10 seconds.
Yeah. No possible way.
Yeah. I guarantee, that's just how when I'll bet you money, man. Like, I wish we had it on video, but I bet you it was 5 or 10 seconds before, it got to the point where you were escaping, so.
Wow. You know what? Because I was going to say, it wouldn't, if you had said it was like 1 second or, like 30 minutes, I had no reference for time because I was really, caught off guard, but not necessarily caught off guard because I feel like I have a decent reflex. But just that the attacks were effective, and until you solve that puzzle, jiu-jitsu is just going to work against you. And if you're being punched at the same time that jiu-jitsu is working, that's a really tough combination, especially if the person's, massively strong and good at jiu-jitsu and all of these things. So, that is crazy. Now, I did have another question about that. I didn't see you in my years there do that a whole lot with, I was there for specific classes in the afternoons, but I didn't see it a whole lot with a lot of other people. Was that just specifically something that you wanted to test us on, or did you do that many more times that I just didn't see it?
No, it's a logistics deal, like, as a matter of fact, one of the things, we're going to start a class here pretty soon that's 100% fundamentals. The first, back in the old days, it was just the first 40 lessons of jiu-jitsu, and then the Gracie, Henner and Heater, and kind of codified it into the combatives program. I think it's 37 or 36 lessons, something like that. But, we started off in the beginning at the academy, where Monday nights was pure combatives, Tuesday night's no-gi, Wednesday night is kind of an intermediate between, an intermediate class. And so essentially back then, just whenever the class was small enough or it was the right guys there, then we'd break out the gloves and the mouthpieces and we would do some of the striking, combine the striking with the ground stuff. But what we're going to do in the new year is we're going to have a class that's at least one class a week, probably two, that's pure combatives, not any rolling as such, but focused sparring sessions where we do stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like once they're so far into the curriculum, then we put the gloves on and we do some very controlled, focused sparring. And, cause I've seen that work, man. I've seen that style of teaching work incredibly well with people to the point where when they did finally start rolling, man, they were killers.
Yes. And a lot of people shoot that program down, but they just don't have experience with it or haven't felt, the legitimacy of those techniques. They're basic, but those are razor sharp techniques. And you can win a sport match. You could win a street fight. Those are just effective techniques. So that's going to be a very, very popular class, and rightly so, because it's so fun. It's the fight simulation. That's what you're talking about there. Mm-hmm. That's basically just kind of like doing the technique one after the other, like tying those techniques together. If we're talking about the same thing, I know.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So, what's amazing is, what's cool is I had the chance to learn the 40 techniques before I knew about the Gracie Academy. And then, I had done those techniques, didn't do them in order. They were all jumbled up, but I did them. Then I found out about the Gracie Academy and started to cycle through the techniques and probably went through that combatives program along with regular training, weekly regular training, probably 40 or 50 times. So yeah, man, and we're still just drilling those same techniques, even with, the new techniques that we learn, Roger and I, those techniques are so good that we just repeat them, to death. So, and that's actually whenever I first started to, Roger took private lessons with me. That's really the thing that we focused on the most is the combatives techniques, and how to best use it with your body type.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic course. And everybody that's listening, if they're anywhere near Professor Phillips, when are you guys going to do that? Start that class?
We'll start it after the first of the year. Within a month, probably in January, somewhere, probably mid-January, when people start going back to school. And here's the thing, man, and I would say this to every black belt out there, man, like, you don't even have to tell, I say you don't have to tell black belts this, I don't know. I think they're probably as widespread as the art is now. I think it's possible that there are black belts out there who've never felt the need to really learn what we're calling the combatives program, or the original first 40 lessons on the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu curriculum, the Elio Gracie first 40 lessons, right? They used to call it the blue belt, it was the blue belt curriculum back in the day. And, but I would say this, man, like, you should never stop practicing that stuff. You should never stop training that. I've been, a very proficient shooter, pistol, rifle, and shotgun for many, many years now. And when I go out to the range, man, when I teach classes, I love teaching the first class in my gunfighter curriculum, because it's all the fundamentals of combat marksmanship, man. And the reason that I'm the shooter I am today is because of the thousands of reps that I have with those fundamentals, and when I am really running and gunning and shooting at a high level, all I'm doing is all those fundamentals at a high level, and it's like they say, it's doing fundamental techniques at a high level that makes you an expert at something. And so with the combatives program, or the fundamentals of jiu-jitsu, bro, I will never stop teaching that stuff, I love teaching it to new people. I could tell you could bring most black belts, and you could tweak their technique on a lot of those fundamentals and make them better, and so, like, that's why I love doing it over and over and over and over and over again,
Well, we've had experiences, and I'm gonna dovetail off of this in a different direction, but I was gonna say this. We had Roger has, at least, definitely, and I have too, but more recently, experiences where you'll be training Roger, and you'll tell me that your training partners don't appear to know the trap and roll whatsoever.
Yeah.
So these fundamental techniques, the best of the best, like the pure gold, is being overlooked, or what is the case? I asked it to Professor Dracolino and several other people. What do you think why is it that people avoid these specific techniques when they're so good?
Yeah, so one, I think it's a lack of curriculum at places. I think I've talked to people who their very first class, they're learning barambolos and inverted, this and that, their very first jiu-jitsu classes. They don't know what a mount is. They don't know what a guard is. They don't know, trap and roll. And they're right off the bat, they're learning this other stuff. So I think that's one of the things. And then, and a lot of times the schools don't require them to go through a fundamentals course. So I think that's one of the reasons. And then, it kind of goes back to my point earlier. There are people who I think are, professional jiu-jitsu guys who are not fighters. And so, they they would much rather just focus on techniques that wherever they're training, they feel like are more applicable to sport jiu-jitsu. And, you know, so that's what they focus on. And I mean, you can now, I don't want this to be taken out of context by anybody listening out there. Hopefully nobody will, but like in the sport of jiu-jitsu, and, you know, and I've heard Danaher say this, in the high level sport of jiu-jitsu, the highest levels, you know, he talks about how you rarely see the trap and roll be effective at the highest levels of jiu-jitsu, and that at the highest levels, typically the most reliable mount escapes are the elbow escapes or the shrimp escapes or, you know, whatever. And that may be true, right? Now, I know that John Danaher believes in the efficacy of the trap and roll. And, you know, and we're just using that one as a basic technique, right? I know he does that. And I know for a fact that he would not ever advocate that not every jiu-jitsu guy needs to learn the trap and roll. I know John Danaher, if he was going to teach a brand new white belt jiu-jitsu, I know that he would insist that they learn the trap and roll. But I can see how guys who, depending on where they come from, their lineage, if they're super sport oriented, they're only focusing on what they believe will absolutely is the most high percentage escapes at the highest levels, you know. So I think that's probably the main reason. But I'll say this. I disagree with that 100%, bro. Like, I mean, I've rolled with high level black belts and trap and rolled them. Just Mark I motto, old school trap and roll. Now it's predicated on, you know, off balancing them and maybe threatening an elbow escape. And then that causes them to tighten up, which gives me an opportunity to trap and roll and vice versa. You know what I mean? So I totally understand what Danaher's saying. You know, but at the same time, you know, I just see it being efficient. And it just goes back to make a long story longer. It just goes back to guys believing they have a better idea of what they need to be doing for sport jiu-jitsu, you know?
Yeah. Because their sole focus is to win that competition under the rules and time limit in the context that they're fighting or rolling. You know, that series of techniques, although a few are, you know, they transfer perfect. A lot of them are techniques that are probably not going to help a whole lot in a sportive role, like the punch block series. What is that? It probably makes it a little bit easier to pass in a sportive setting using the stage 3, stage 4, if you're not careful. But why would you, I mean, yeah, those are
you wouldn't use it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I would say the one thing that I would say is if you have a good, if you have a great elbow escape and you have no trap and roll, then you have a great elbow escape. But if you have a great elbow escape and a great trap and roll, then you have a great mount escape. You have more potential than not. So it can't hurt you to get really good at that particular one because it only adds more layers to the puzzle.
Yeah.
So
and here, so we have at our academy, you know this, but I was talking to a guy today, man, and everybody has their own reasons for taking jiu-jitsu. And I was talking to a guy today, and his primary, I'll talk about that in a minute, but I tell people all the time, like, our academy is rooted in old school get down street jiu-jitsu. Every class, even if we're working on sport techniques, we typically talk about, okay, but if we were in the street, we would do this differently, or we wouldn't do this at all, or we would add, modify it, whatever, right? So that is those are our roots. But at the same time, you know, we've got guys that are world champions out of the academy. We've got guys that are Pan American champions. We got guys that win, you know, IBJJF International opens regularly. We have an incredibly successful kids competition team. They just competed this last weekend and just killed it. And so we, at the same time, you know, there's room for both. There's room for 100% self-defense, and there's room for sport. And I tell people, and you know, both sides of that coin, and for listeners out there, right, like, man, it's cool. It's fun to do both. It's okay to do both. You don't have to. It's absolutely okay to do one or the other if that's what you want to do, man. If it's, hey, I'm going to go play basketball for fun, or I'm going to go do jiu-jitsu for fun and not worry about self-defense, well, go do jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? Like, that's okay too. But I tell people all the time, like, quote unquote self-defense jiu-jitsu is 100% applicable to sport jiu-jitsu, because self-defense jiu-jitsu is simply the fundamentals of jiu-jitsu. I mean, it's trap and roll, elbow escapes, straight arm bar, headlock escapes, guillotine escapes, standing arm locks, simple fundamental takedowns. I mean, it's all it's fundamental jiu-jitsu. That it absolutely is applicable to sport. And then at the same time, if somebody has the fundamentals and they know how to flip the switch, well, then sport jiu-jitsu can make your self-defense jiu-jitsu better, because the more you train sport jiu-jitsu, the better you're able to control your body and your coordination and your dexterity and all that. So when you apply those physical skills and the awareness and kind of the spidey senses and all that come from training a lot, when you apply that to self-defense jiu-jitsu, well, then your self-defense is better. You know what I mean? You're not going to, as long as you understand, you're not going to invert under a guy and go for a heel hook, you know, where he can just hammer fist you into oblivion. You know, I mean, and I think, I hope most people have enough common sense to kind of connect those dots, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I've never seen you invert or do any of those super incredibly sportive techniques. Not that you haven't done them or don't do them. I never saw that. But do you use those techniques when necessary? Or if you were rolling just sportively, would you ever use those 100% sport techniques, like that kind of inversion and berimbolo?
Some of them. And I'll tell you this. So, you know, when I do that stuff the most is when I'm playing around with kids.
Yeah.
When I'm playing around with the kids, I'll invert under them and roll around and lift them up, and I do all kinds of that stuff when I'm playing around with kids. When I'm rolling with adults, the only time that I'll really, when I'm rolling seriously with guys, and this has kind of been the case. Well, this has been the case since we've had this academy full time. Okay. So there are some moves, some techniques that I don't do at the academy when I'm rolling around, because I almost feel like it's cheating, because almost without fail, I can catch whoever I'm with when I'm doing that, right? And so for years and years, until, you know, and I still think I can, but it was just grossly evident up until we really got heavy into the competition scene, and when heel hooks and knee bars started becoming legal in IBJJF competition. All right. Before that, whenever I would roll with guys, even really, really good guys, I wouldn't do a lot of foot locks. I wouldn't do any heel hooks. I wouldn't do knee bars, because it was just like, it was almost like cheating. You know what I mean? Because, it's almost like it was too effective for me to use those kind of techniques with the guys where they were at, right? So now we're talking about the academy's 8 years old, and for the first 5 years, and I had a couple, I was involved with a couple other academies before that, but I'm just talking about the guys we have now. For the first 5 years, most of those guys came there as white belts. So there were a few guys that came as wrestlers. So there was a process of getting them up to speed, you know what I mean? And then, but for like the last probably 3 years, and then we had some guys, come in, like you and some other, Professor Rhodes came in I think he came in as a brown belt. He'd been training a long time. Guys came in, and so now with some of the guys at the academy, man, nothing's easy, you know what I mean? So, but I still, with our very best guys, I'll do some of that stuff if it becomes necessary. But man, I'll tell you this, when I learned a lesson on inversion probably 15 years ago, okay? And I was rolling with a dude who was probably, he was probably 300 pounds, 310, something like that. And I was probably 215 at the time. And he was in my guard. I caught him in an arm lock. He started to stack, and I was going to roll through under him, right? Invert underneath him. And when I rolled under, and I was reaching for the far side leg to hook and roll under him. And whenever I grabbed his leg and I pulled I pulled it out from under him, and I was completely underneath him, and he just collapsed 310 pounds on top of me. And it popped one of my ribs. And, and I rolled through and got the armbar and all that, but afterwards I was like, I didn't have to do that. You know what I mean? I was way better than the dude. Even if I would have just let go of the armbar, put him back in my guard, and transitioned to a triangle or something, I did not have to invert under him. And so what that means is I didn't have to. So that means it was not a wise move. You know what I mean? Because if I don't have to do something, but there's danger in it, well, then it's unwise. You know what I mean? So that stuck with me ever since, Now, there are times where, like on that's a simple technique where you may need to, you may have to. But if you don't have to, if you don't have to, it's wise not to. So.
And this is kind of like a Ronda Rousey setup that she used that dig, that far side, grab the leg and then roll under. But she's rolling with people that are her same size.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll do that, but I just, ever since that day, I have counseled people, hey, if you're going with somebody that has 50 pounds on you, bro, you don't want to be inverting underneath them. I mean, it may work out 99 times, but that one time that they just lose their balance and just fall on top of you, man, it can be a bad day. So
that's something that we talk about, is that a form of self-defense is just protecting yourself in every possible position. If your hand is, what technique am I thinking of? I can't think of which one it is, but if you don't turn your hand over and cup the shoulder when they roll you, you're gonna hurt your hand.
Yeah.
There's always an opportunity to do things the wrong way or the right way, and that's definitely the lesson that you learned there, right? Is like there's a right time and a wrong time, a right way and a wrong way. But yeah, that's awesome. Now, I just remembered something that you had mentioned way back there, and I was going to kind of dovetail or go into a different direction, slightly different. You're talking about fundamental shooting skills and perfecting those fundamental techniques and being an expert. Once the better you got at those fundamentals. Are those fundamentals, specifically the fundamentals that you're talking about there with the marksmanship, is that stuff that started in buds for you or after?
Some of both. Okay. So before I got into like really, elite level marksmanship training consistently, when I was a kid, man, I was pretty blessed because my dad had been a 4th Recon Marine during Vietnam, and he was good at everything he did. And so he taught me the fundamentals of marksmanship when I was a kid. And so I understood from an early age with a rifle the fundamentals of marksmanship. And so sight alignment, sight picture, trigger control, breath control, that kind of stuff. All right. And then, as a preteen and a teenager, and this is going to sound crazy, but it just is what it is. He was basically a professional dart player, at one point. And so he and my mom were divorced, so I would go with him on the weekends. And so he started taking me into all the bars in Dallas, playing in dart tournaments. And I, got pretty good at it. And when I would practice it, so I would ask him, hey, how do I practice at home? How do I get really good, And he said, you stand there when you're practicing, you focus on just the 1 centimeter of space. Or he just said, you focus exactly where you want the dart to land on the board. And you stand there and you stare at it and you focus on it until everything else gets blurry. And that one little piece, that one little area is crystal clear. Okay. That's how good your focus needs to be in order to be an elite level dart player, right? Well, the funny thing is that's how good your focus has to be an elite level anything. But that specifically, that type of focus ability is to a great degree part of shooting, right? Being able to focus on your front sight to really, really become good. And you focus on your front sight. Everything else is kind of blurry. And so those fundamentals began before. By the time I got into the Navy, man, I was like a master Jedi level of being able to focus on things. So I had the basic fundamentals of marksmanship down before I went into SEAL training. And then when I got to SEAL training, I just started building on top of that and have been building on that and polishing and refining those fundamentals, for the last 30 some odd years.
Would you say that you were already squared away when you went to SEAL training, or that it happened when you were there?
As far as shooting goes?
No, I mean, just overall,
Overall?
Yeah.
So I was when I got there, I was squared away. I mean, if I hadn't gone in the Navy, I would have been successful doing something else. You know what I mean? I had great parents who trained me the right way. I was just super blessed to have the parents that I had that taught me, how to be successful in life. My dad just kind of set an example. Now listen, my dad he was an outlaw, and he had some rough years where, he probably, most people would say he was not setting the best example for me. But as far as the dad goes, and as far as winning and being successful. I mean, he was a successful outlaw, you know, like he did teach me how to be successful in life. And my mom, she made me believe that I could accomplish anything in life that I set my mind to. She did a masterful job of empowering me. She didn't coddle me at all. She didn't give me everything I wanted. She didn't spoil me. She just trained me to train my mind to, you know, believe that I could accomplish anything I wanted in life. And I had that before I got to SEAL training. Then when I got to SEAL training, you know, it was kind of, so I had those fundamentals before I got to SEAL training. When I got to SEAL training, it was just like all the other stuff. It just started building on top of that, you know, and that's where I really, you know, started kind of discovering, hey man, there's no excuse for failure. You can accomplish at least 10 times more than you think you can. You know, losing is not an option. There is no, you know, second place is the first loser. Everything is a race, you know, and it just built on top of that and just kept training and training and training and training, you know, until the point where you just believe, man, you demonstrate that you can accomplish anything.
You know, one of the things that I have experienced that not many other than, you know, the students there and the other people in your life have experienced is hearing a lot of these stories firsthand and getting to ask you about a lot of this stuff. You know, over the years, here and there, it turns into quite a few questions and answers. And I remember a couple of things that I asked have, you know, stood out, of course. One that I asked you, and then you said it to the rest of the class later, that I was wondering what was the what did you take with you to SEAL training that prepared you, whereas, you know, the other guys they weren't prepared, and you said that you knew that you could take a beating.
Yeah. So, you know, my sports background was football and fighting. Okay. That was, and I played football here in Texas, and I'm 53. So like I played old school, what would be considered now old school football, right? The rules were different. There was no rules were made to protect you in any way, pretty much. I mean, the UIL, the school rules, they had them, but most places didn't follow them 100%. And, you know, so anyway, all that to say, what they asked me the most was, how did football, they asked me if football, you know, prepared me for SEAL training at all. And the answer that I would always give to that, my answer to that was, the only way football prepared me for SEAL training is that I know I'm tough, because I played football in Texas in August, and we went through 2 days in August in Texas, bro, and like for a month, you know, and like it's 107 degrees out there, and, you know, we're practicing probably, you know, 5 to 6 hours a day back then for a month in 107 degrees, and just just smashing each other. Every day was full contact, you know, and so it was like, I just knew I could take it. I just knew I was tough, you know. I mean, the physical kind of training that I did wasn't, other than just being athletic and powerful, which later on benefited me tremendously, man. The actual job of being a SEAL, being powerful and athletic and strong, is a great benefit. But actually going through the training is more, you know, long distance endurance type stuff. I mean, you got to carry some heavy stuff, but it's long runs, it's long swims, it's push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, flutter kicks, it's obstacle courses, it's soft sand running, it's, you know, it's all that kind of stuff. And that's not what an explosive athlete typically excels at, you know. And I was an explosive athlete. Now, I was fortunate because before I went to Buds, I was boxing. You know, I boxed and I kickboxed, but specifically the boxing, whenever I started training in boxing, my coach made me run 4.5 to 5 miles a day. And so, you know, by the time I got to Buds, man, I was a good runner. I mean, I've always been fat. I've always been a really good sprinter, but I was never a good long distance runner until I started boxing. And then, you know, I became a pretty good long distance runner as well. So, and as it were, I just kind of found out later on that, yeah, I can suffer well, man. Like I can suck it up and just be miserable with the best of them.
And I asked you, specifically and I know other people have asked many times, was there ever a point where you were like just at the end of your rope, and something along the lines of that you thought that your mom wouldn't quit, so you wouldn't quit? Is that right? Something like that, right?
Yeah, 100%. So before I went to Buds, you know, and I mean, you'll hear guys say, you'll hear guys say, if somebody tells you that they'd never thought about quitting, like if they never considered quitting, that they're lying to you. That's what the people will say. And I disagree with that because, there was an event, you know, like a deal that we're doing where it's called a hygiene inspection of all things. They're just checking you to make sure you don't have any kind of flesh-eating diseases or whatever. It was during Hell Week, and we were down into our basically like underwear. You know, they called them tri-shorts. They were like mid-thigh level, you know, spandex, kind of tight Under Armour shorts. Right. And we're out on this concrete. This is right out by the, you know, probably 40 yards from the beach or whatever. So it's probably 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So it's cold, man. It's San Diego, and the breeze is blowing in off the ocean. And so the air temperature is probably 50 degrees. I don't know, something like that. And we're out there, and so when some of the guys are going in to be checked by the doctors, the rest of us are out on this concrete, laying on the concrete, and the instructors are just hosing us down with water hose. And I mean, we're freezing. I mean, we're shaking violently, you know. And so I'm laying there, and we're kind of spread eagle on our back, and we're just shaking, just shivering. And the instructor's hosing us down with water, and my hip flexors were cramping up so bad that it was making my feet rise up off the ground about 6 inches because my hip flexors were contracting and just cramping and pulling my feet up off the ground, right? So, I mean, when you get, you know, cramps, think about that. That's how bad this was. It felt like somebody was hitting me in the hip flexors with butcher knives. And I just remember laying there, and the instructors were like, all right, we'll stop doing this when one of y'all quits. And when he said that, I remember thinking to myself, like, bro, if my mom was here, she wouldn't quit, dude. There's no way I'm quitting. What are you talking about? Get out of here. And that, I mean, that's the only time I ever even, you know, the quitting, I ever even thought about it. And it wasn't me thinking, man, maybe I'm going to quit. No, it was like, get out of here, you fag. My freaking mom wouldn't quit, you know?
Well, when things got like dark, when things got so hard and difficult that you were like truly suffering, what was on your mind? What was going through your mind then?
Man, you know, one of the things that I was kind of good at was just thinking about, accomplishing the goal. You know what I mean? And so, you know, you hear all the time, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And that's really the best way to get through any kind of miserable suck kind of training, man. You just take another step forward. You just keep moving. You know, one of my favorite scenes of all the movies that I've ever seen was from the original Rambo, right, which was First Blood. Have y'all seen First Blood, the original one?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So there's a scene in there where Rambo is running from the cops initially, right? So he's initially running, you know, he runs up in the mountains, and man, you know, well, it's such a good movie. Anyway, he's injured, he falls down, he's exhausted, he's tired, and he says to himself, gotta move. And he gets up and he starts moving again. And, you know, that's kind of been my mentality. I mean, like when it's just really miserable and really sucking, man, you just gotta move. You just gotta keep moving. You gotta keep moving forward. And you just can't, you know, there's that old saying, fatigue makes cowards of all men. And I just decided, you know, a long time ago, bro, like, I'm just going to keep moving. Like, I'm not going to lay down and die. You know, when I went to Buds, I told people, I said, I cannot guarantee you. I said this beforehand. And man, I'll give it to the people. Most people that say, I guarantee I'm not going to quit Buds. Most of those guys do quit. I mean, that is a fact. But before I went, I did say, I guarantee you I'm not quitting. I can't guarantee you that I'm going to make it through, because even before I went there, I knew that, number one, I could get injured so badly that I didn't make it through. Number two, you know, the instructors may not like me, and they may just, you know, just kick me out. Or number three, I may die. And I knew going into it that, you know, man, there's a possibility of dying. And I was like, so I can't guarantee that one of those things won't happen. But I guarantee you, I'm not going to quit because it sucks. Like, I'm going to suck it up and do that part. And, you know, so you just got to freaking, you know, our minds, that was one thing, you know, Bud's SEAL training is predicated on the fact that your body is capable of 10 times more than you think it is. And so it's a mind game. You know, you got to control your mind. And as far as performance goes and suffering and all that, I got control of my mind specifically on the performance side of things when I was, you know, pretty young, man, probably 11, 12, 13 years old. So it paid off.
And another thing that you told me, just kind of going back one step, I asked you what the difference is between, you know, the dudes that don't make it and the guys that do make it. Why, you know, can you point to the thing that is the difference? And you said there comes a point, or there will come a point at some time, and it might not even be necessarily this exact thing, but there will come a point where it plays out that you will either have to choose to shoot to the surface of the water and breathe, or choose to drown before you give up. And that was the difference that you pointed to. Do you remember that? Is that correct as well?
Yeah. So, but kind of in reverse order. So here's what I tell people. They've done all kinds of studies on who's going to make it through, why people quit, you know, why some of the very best athletes in the world quit, why some of the worst athletes that are there don't quit, blah, blah, blah. You know, they've gone in, I mean, everything from race, ethnicity, culture, sports backgrounds, blah, blah, blah. And they can't figure it out, right? Well, listen, I know. I can tell you the answer. The answer is very simple. The people that quit did not want to be Navy SEALs bad enough. It's that simple. It has nothing to do with where they came from, their work ethic, their abilities. Now, some people get dropped. They call it a performance drop. Some people just get kicked out because physically, nowadays you got to be a good athlete, man, to make it through. And some people they're just not good enough athletes. But the people that quit, every person who quits, simply didn't want to be a Navy SEAL bad enough. There was a backup plan. They just did not have the desire necessary to be a SEAL. And I follow it up by saying, and there comes a point where you're going to have to choose between, you got to want to be a SEAL more than you want to breathe, because there's going to come a time where you got to choose between the two. There's going to come a time where you got to choose exactly like you said. So there's some evolutions where you're doing this called pull comp, where you got these problems to solve with your diving rigs, and you can either stay down there and keep working on it, or you can bolt to the surface and breathe. And some guys, they'll stay down there and keep working on it until they pass out. Well, that guy really wants to be a SEAL. And other guys, when they're about to pass out, they bolt to the surface. And, people say, well, it's stupid to stay down there and pass out. Well, not if you really want to be a SEAL. Like if you really want to be a SEAL, it's worth staying down there and working until you may get it at the very last second. And then you get the thumbs up, or you get your air turned back on, or whatever. And so I use that as an example. But at the end of the day, man, like if you don't want to be a Navy SEAL more than you want to breathe, bro, you might as well not even try.
Well, was that second phase for you at the time, full comp?
Yeah, it was second phase then. And that's changed around a few times, but they moved. It used to be like in the old days, it was third phase. And, but they moved it to second phase because there were guys that were getting through, they were getting through first phase, and then they were getting through land warfare. And then they would get to dive phase, and they would quit during dive phase. And so they switched it around. So now you go through first phase, you go through second phase, which is diving, combat diving. And then once you get through that, then you go to third phase, which is land warfare.
Did you have any real challenge with any of those phases?
Yeah, I had in second phase, in my pistol classes, I talk about, I was a pretty good shooter. Like I got to be one of the better shooters in the teams. And, but I was absolutely one of the worst swimmers. So, like God made me to crash through doors and break stuff and blow stuff up and kill stuff, right? Like He didn't make me to propel myself over the top of the surface of the water, like I sink like a freaking rock. And so in second phase, you have to do they're basically lifeguard drills, man. It's life saving. It's going out and rescuing drowning victims. And the drowning victims just so happen to be BUDS instructors, SEAL instructors who fight you. It's basically like once I realized that it was basically underwater fighting first and then rescuing them, when I realized that out of necessity, then man, I kicked it in the butt. But before that, when I was just going out there, swimming out to the drowning victim and like trying to rescue him like you think you would rescue somebody, man, they were killing me, And so I failed that the first time. That's the only evolution that I failed the whole time in BUDS. And so I had to go back and retest that one. And the second time, I went out there and I basically did jiu-jitsu to the cat underwater and then drug his butt to the side of the pool and did all. But that was the thing I struggled with the most. Now I struggled on every swim, Joey. Every swim was a kick in the nuts for me. I mean, bro, like I never failed to swim, but I never passed a swim by more than 10 or 15 seconds. So like, you know, it was miserable. I should have got an extra special award at the end of Buds for the energy I put out on the swim.
How did the 50 meter underwater, that drill, did you make it the first time through that one?
Yeah, that was pretty easy for me, honestly. That wasn't that big a deal. Once I got under the water, everything under the water I was pretty good at. Like all of the diving I was pretty good at, all the underwater knot tying, the drown proofing, anything under the water, all the diving. Even I learned how to fly the little mini submarines, like all the stuff under the water I was pretty good at. It was just the whole buoyancy and propelling problems that I had, you know, so if I get under the water, I was fine. And so the 50 meter underwater swim was pretty easy for me, honestly. Wasn't no big deal.
Okay, so two last questions about Bud, and then I'll move on.
Sure.
Were you ever part of the Goon Squad for any reason?
No, I was never on the Goon Squad, man. I was a pretty good runner. By the time I got there, I could run pretty well. I could sprint. I could out sprint everybody. And I was in probably the top 5 runners in my Buds class on long distance stuff.
The instructors didn't, you were the gray man for the most part, or did they like you, or?
Yeah, you know, when there was a whole bunch of us, they liked me. When there was a whole bunch of us, I was a gray man. And then as the numbers started trickling down, you know, some of the instructors like second phase, the second phase officer played football at Alabama under Bear Bryant. So, you know, he saw me, and when he found out I'd played college ball, like him and several of those second phases, they were fighters too. So they liked me. And then third phase, a bunch of those guys liked me because, I was, you know, a good shooter and good with demo and stuff like that. Now, I made plenty of mistakes, bro. Like, I'm not sitting here saying, man, I don't want to make it out like I was a freaking golden boy at Buds or anything. I mean, I made plenty of mistakes when I was there. And, but they were learning experiences, you know, and then once I got into the teams, man, I didn't make a whole lot of mistakes once I got in the team. So, but anyway, yeah, so that was that.
Okay, so my last question is specific. At the end of Hell Week, did you experience the thing where you started to hallucinate, kind of lose your mind?
The only, and I don't know if it was, I think it was a dream. I don't even think it was, I don't think I ever hallucinated. So there's this thing called Around the World where you, paddle your boats around Coronado Island. So Coronado is like a peninsula. You paddle your boat around the whole thing into the harbor, San Diego Bay and all this kind of stuff. And it was like maybe Thursday night or something. And so, you kind of sit on the gunnels, the pontoons of the Zodiac inflatable boat. And I just fell asleep as I'm paddling. And I do this, like my wife would say, I'll be asleep or you'll think I'm asleep and then I start talking to you, right? So like I'm sleeping it's like micro sleep, man. Like I don't think anybody can get the drop on me. I think, cause I'm like, even when I'm sleeping, like I'm kind of awake. And so, I was paddling, and I think I fell asleep paddling and kept paddling and was dreaming. And I just dreamed that one of the guys from my boat had fallen in the ocean, and I'm like reaching out to him, telling him like, hey, grab my hand, get in the boat. And then like I look up and, you know, And like, he's right in front of me. You know what I mean? And they're like, he's not in the water, you idiot. He's right there. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. Keep stroking, you idiot. You know, played it off like, but it really wasn't a hallucination. I don't think. I think I really just fell asleep and was dreaming for a minute,
So the last few days then you were just wrung out, just completely exhausted, but kind of still in it.
Yeah, man, I did. My feet got chewed up really bad, actually, before Hell Week. So the biggest trouble I had in Hell Week was just the pain in my heels. I'll show you some pictures sometimes. My heels got chewed up, and my heels were perfect up until the Friday. I had 0 foot issues at all going into Friday before Hell Week. And then I listened to this guy in the class ahead of me. And he gave me some great advice that I didn't need, and I did it, and it resulted in my heel getting just filleted open. That was going into Hell Week. And so then the next 5.5 days just chewed them up even more. And so other than that, man, I didn't have any issues with Hell Week at all. And as a matter of fact, I think that whole going back to the, what do you do when it's just really sucking bad? One of the advantages that I had in Hell Week is that I didn't know what was coming next. I didn't study it. I didn't read everything that might have been out. I didn't know what was coming after each evolution. All I knew was they're telling us to be here at this certain time and do it. And so that's all I was concerned about. I just kept moving forward, man. And then we would do that. It'd be miserable, cold, sucking, dirt, sand, pain, all that. And I did it. And then we'd finish that one and they said, all right, now go do this. And I'm like, all right, let's go. So and now don't get me wrong. It's hard and it sucks. I mean, it sucks more than you can imagine until you're there. But, God's blessed us with pretty amazing bodies that can do a whole lot more than most people think they can. So, and now if you're a wuss, well, hey man, you're a wuss and you're going to, you're going to have a different experience, but.
This was 94, right?
90. I went to Hell Week in 93.
93. So was this around, Goggins? Was Goggins was he there at that time?
No, he was, I think he's well after me. I think he went through training. Well, he went through 3 times. So I don't know what his original Buds class was, but I think even his original class was well after mine, I think. I'm not sure, but I never came across him when I was in the teams.
How about Joe Burns? Was he at Buds when you were there?
No, I don't remember that name. Instructor Burns? No.
Yeah, I can't remember the other guy, but there's. Last question about Buds, and then we're going to move on. Was Old Misery there when you were there?
Oh yeah. We tried like most of the classes, man. We tried to sink that sucker. We tried to send it off to Davy Jones' locker out in the middle of the ocean, and that sucker it just kept floating back up onto the beach. And and it was heavy, but I mean it, bro, they all sucked. They were all miserable, but yeah, it was there, still there. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite memories of Buds was we had this instructor and he died. He died in training, later on, but, his name was Fitzhenry, Instructor Fitzhenry. And he was probably 5'9". He looked like he was about 240, solid muscle. And, he actually, when we tried to float Old Misery out into the ocean, the next day when we were going out to do log PT, he comes walking up from the beach. You got to picture this dude, like he's in his UDT trunks, this little tan, Navy dive trunks. He comes walking up to the beach. He's just jacked, man. And he's got that log, Old Misery, which weighed about 300 pounds. It was at least 300. I think it was a little over 300 pounds. He's got that log up on his shoulder and he's carrying it up the beach by himself. coming out of the ocean, carrying it up towards us. He's like, I don't know what you sissies think, you know, what you're complaining about. This ain't that heavy, blah, blah, blah. Now get down and, you know, I mean, it was pretty awesome. Makes you feel pretty small, you know.
No kidding. Speaking of badass dudes, that I seen you post a picture with Master Chief Herschel Davis. Did you know him, or did you just meet him, or how did that happen?
So I saw him on a Discovery Channel or some kind of documentary.
Yep.
I don't remember if that was before I went to Buds or while I was in Buds, or while I was in the teams. He was not at Buds when I was there. But I saw, and I remember him talking about when he was in Vietnam and keeping composure in firefights, and talking about not getting too high or too low, but just staying even keeled and just moving through the target, eliminating threats, you know. And that made an impact on me early on. And then, he got out of the Navy. We were probably in at the same time, but I never came across him. But then, every year, my motorcycle club, we ride down to Bandera, Texas for this Frogs for Freedom run. That's a benefit run for the Navy SEAL Foundation. And a lot of old SEALs and young SEALs meet up down there, and that's where that picture came from. So I've seen him down there, I don't know, the last 4 or 5 years, and we drank a couple of beers together, and he's a really cool old guy. He's just a cool dude. He's a stud. He's a legend, you know, and bigger than life kind of guy, you know. And man, I just love hanging out with those dudes, because the Vietnam era guys, they're the ones that, you know, that's where the SEAL teams made our bones, man, was in Vietnam originally. And with my dad being a Vietnam guy, you know, like those dudes, I just have nothing but the utmost respect for those guys. And anytime I can be around them, and, you know, certainly if I can buy them a beer if they drink, or a Coke if they don't, man, I love hanging out with them.
Yeah, one of the coolest things in that show is them asking Master Chief Davis if he regretted any of the, you know, targets or the people that he killed. He was like, no complaints. I wish I had more to attack.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah, man, those guys are, you know, I say it all the time, like we the young guys, we stand on the shoulders of giants, and those guys are some of those giants.
And this is exactly the tie back into jiu-jitsu. And that's what has been left in the past by the sportive guys, overwhelmingly by them, is the respect and the loyalty, or the, honoring the folks that came before us, and sometimes outright disrespecting them, like Keenan Cornelius saying that Eliu and Hickson were equivalent to purple belts.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Such a foolish statement from such a fantastic, grappler. So if this is the type of mindset, among the best of the best, then it isn't looking good, for the future of jiu-jitsu, if not for guys like us that are willing to, to stand up and say, hey, everybody remember, nobody forget, we are slipping around in the blood of the Gracie family, and we have to, honor them. And if we don't, then this is going to be, the sacrifice is going to be forgotten.
Right.
A piece of the tradition is forgotten, and the art suffers because of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Go
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Professor.
Well, no. What were you going to say? I want to hear what you have to say first.
Well, I was just to toss it over to Roger for any questions that he has. So if you want to finish your thought first, for sure.
So here's the thing about that, right? And I'll say this: Keenan's a young guy, And if he had it to do all over again, he might not have made those statements. You know what I mean? I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, and he probably didn't think through it. You know, who knows what his real thoughts are, what he really meant when he said that, how it was, you know, who knows? He's a young guy. Man, I've made plenty of stupid comments, whatever. But here's what I will say on that. That's how life goes, bro. People forget where they came from. And, and I'll give you an example. Right after 9/11, man, this country was united. And because there was an enemy at the gate, and man, we came together as a country, and we loved each other, and blah blah blah. And the farther we get away from 9/11, the big catastrophe, the more divided we get. You talk about blood and the sweat and the tears that Elio and Carlson and all those old guys and Carlos and all those old guys that they put in the sacrifice to build jiu-jitsu what it is today. And man, the next generation, Hoyce and Horion and Helson and all those guys and Henzo and, the guys that really kind of put it on the Hickson, put it on the map in kind of modern times. And it's too bad. But bro, like, who respects the founding fathers of this country anymore? You know what I mean? Like, the guys who accomplished probably one of the most incredible feats in the history of mankind. I mean, that sounds crazy, but it really was pretty amazing, at tremendous sacrifice. And, as a country today, man, typically it's not respected, the way people act. And, so that's just I think that's just kind of a natural progression. The farther you get away, the more and more, people get full of themselves and they're lost and all this kind of stuff. But that, I think, is one of the reasons that y'all's podcast is as important as it is. And, in the future, man, I hope that more guys will go and talk about that stuff on podcast, because, people forget. They forget. And it amazes me. Every week I may have said this last time, but every week I get parents. It's 2023, right? The original UFC, what year was it? 93? It's 2023, right? 30 plus years. I have parents that call, they have no idea what jiu-jitsu is. They call because they call our academy because they want their kids to take karate lessons. and they have no idea the differences between karate and jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? Like, now some of them, they're not fighters, they're not martial artists. But here's an even crazier thing, right? There are people who are UFC fans today, that there are guys today that are actual MMA fighters. And they don't really know and understand that when you put art versus art, that jiu-jitsu, just like it did 30 plus years ago, still is the king of martial arts. There are dudes watching because now everybody learns jiu-jitsu. They never knew a time when it was jiu-jitsu versus wrestling, or jiu-jitsu versus karate, or jiu-jitsu versus kung fu. And so it's cyclical, man. There'll be guys that lose MMA matches in the future because they don't think that they need to learn jiu-jitsu. And it's just because people forget things. You know what I mean? And there's no difference. I can tell you this. Right now, we've got some kids at the academy that 16 years old who have done jiu-jitsu for 2 years. Okay. You can take any wrestler from Wiley High School or any other high school, basically, and you could bring him to who's never seen a UFC, never played around with their friends, never trained jiu-jitsu, and bring them over, and our 16-year-olds, blue belts, will submit them. We'll beat them in a fight if the kid doesn't know jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? Wrestling still doesn't have arm locks, still doesn't have chokes. It's still a separate art. You know what I mean? And karate's still karate, kung fu's still kung fu, boxing's still boxing, kickboxing's still kickboxing, jiu-jitsu still trumps them all when pitted art versus art, you know? And that's part of the reason people, you know, they just forget things, man. They get so far down the path that they don't know their history. So, and maybe they don't see it at their academies.
Well, I can see the keyboard warriors right now typing, saying, man, you know, there's been like 20 wrestlers that have been champions. There's been 20 stand-up guys. The Gracies are out of the UFC. When people got good, they left. That it's like the same on repeat. That same thing on repeat where they're missing the point.
They don't. That might be a whole. Listen, I can logically shoot down every one of their arguments on that.
Absolutely.
1,000,000%. I can logically shoot down every one of their points. And it's just stuff they have not thought about. It's just, they don't see things clearly. They just have not, they just don't. There's been 0 wrestlers that have won the UFC in modern times without jiu-jitsu. There's been 0 stand-up fighters who have not learned jiu-jitsu who've won the UFC. Who? Tell me one guy who's won the UFC who has not trained in any jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it does make either they train jiu-jitsu or they train to fight against jiu-jitsu, in which case they're still doing jiu-jitsu.
That is jiu-jitsu. I do that every night. I mean, I run a jiu-jitsu academy, and every night I train to fight against jiu-jitsu. I mean, you know, but even then, it's a whole different. Anyway, there's a whole. You can talk about the athletes. You know, you can talk about all kinds of things. But anyway, yeah. Hey, man, I'm down. Any of the keyboard warriors want to talk? Let's talk.
Well, that's another point we're going to get into in a second. But one thing that I was going to say is one thing that they don't consider is the time limits that were put into place that have evolved over the years for sure. 3 5-minute rounds or 5 5-minute rounds. That is such a short time for a jiu-jitsu guy to cook another person that maybe they would have needed another 10 minutes or 15 or whatever the case. But Gracie Jiu-Jitsu specifically is the one where you can conserve your energy and you can last that long haul. And, you know, if other guys might be able to do it with their personal attributes or, you know, they might, whatever the case is, it's possible for people to still, last a long time in a fight. But Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is the only one that will teach you specifically how to do that. I wanted to tell you one other thing. Professor, I rolled the other night with Hannon, and we still train. We all still train constantly. Mm-hmm. And we rolled for 42 minutes.
Wow.
And a hard roll. And he's taller than me by a long shot. So, wow. Telling me one time, you telling the parents, you know, your kids are gonna, basically, one day your kids are gonna beat you up. And I was like, no, it's not gonna happen. And you were like, yeah, but they all say that. Just wait. So
yeah.
Here it is.
Yeah.
But he's doing well. He's doing really well. And specifically what we're talking about here, energy conservation, He's able to roll, a brown belt that's putting pressure, that's not letting him win. So that's just one of the things that I'm proud of, is that it doesn't matter what the time limit is, that we can roll, we can just fight, we can go and go and go and go, because we've been trained to do so. That's something we're only going to get with Scott Phillips or with, Gracie University or some legit place like that. Now, Roger, you have some questions for the professor?
Well, I want to strike while the iron's hot, because I'm dying to know. We were going to talk about these keyboard warriors, and there's a guy, a specific black belt, this Talk Jitsu podcast guy, saying he would destroy Helson, he would destroy Scott in a roll, and he has this video about old school versus new school, and kind of along the same lines of saying, Hickson is a purple belt level and things like that.
Mm-hmm. So, hey, can you explain how would he even come up on, with Scott or with Helson? How did that happen?
Yeah, where'd that come from?
Well, I mean, Joey, you had messaged him and basically said, disagreeing with him, that I think the question was, at how far back do you have to go for like a modern day purple belt to be better than some of these old school guys? And for some reason, they threw out like 20 years, 10 years, stuff like that. And your comment was basically disagreeing with them, and then I was shocked that this podcaster would just say, "Oh, no, I would destroy," because I think you mentioned Helson and Grandmaster Helson, and you mentioned Scott, and he was like, "I would destroy both of them." I just thought it was crazy that he would just like, and then you spoke with them and you over the messages, and you kind of gave him a chance to maybe disagree with that statement. He'd like doubled down. He's like, "No, I definitely would destroy them."
Yeah. So the way that happened was, the video was to sum it up, the video was saying that the old school guys, and even they're saying old school like 10, 15, 20 years, the old school guys are so far, like dinosaurs, they're so far down the ladder that their skill level is that of modern day purple belts. So the same kind of statement. And I said, no, that I was a purple belt, that I got my brown belt, and that I certainly got smashed, when you wanted to smash. And that Helson's skill is as incredible as it can possibly be. If we're talking about old school guys, these are guys that have the tip of the spear technique. And, so there's not a clear line between skill level, between old school, new school. It's just good jiu-jitsu or not good jiu-jitsu.
Right. Yeah.
So, that's basically the point that I made to him, and the guy very disrespectfully, just point blank, was like, "No, I would crush them. I would crush up Professor."
Well, so here's what I think about that. Okay. Number one, and this is what I tell people. Okay, Helson's 70. All right. So Helson's out of the, Helson ain't fighting anybody. I mean, unless you show up at a bar and pick a fight with him, then he's more than well. Yeah. Helson, he doesn't roll with anybody. When Helson was, if you could transport Helson, a 28-year-old Helson, right? I don't know who is the guy. Who's the guy? What's his name?
Roger, can you look up his name? He's a little knucklehead. He's about 5'8". 170 pounds, something like that. Little guy, just a little sport jiu-jitsu guy.
Yeah.
Do you know his name, Roger?
I don't. I just know it's Talk Jitsu is his podcast, and I couldn't find him. I was gonna look up his info.
Well, here's the thing. All right. It doesn't matter. Whatever. If you could teleport 28-year-old Helson Gracie to today, and you threw him in the ring with any of the guys fighting MMA today his way, and I think he was about 185 then. Okay. Anybody, and part of this goes back to athleticism, right? 28-year-old Helson Gracie fighting modern MMA today, anybody, including the UFC champions, he's a problem for them.
Yeah.
He's a problem. I promise you. Because Helson was, you look at the old pictures of him, he was 185 pounds, no weightlifting, no nothing, just 185 pounds of explosive athlete who was a master of jiu-jitsu, of street fight, of the most efficient jiu-jitsu that you could have, okay? And it 100%, the UFC jiu-jitsu, the MMA jiu-jitsu is the same jiu-jitsu from back then. It's the same stuff. The stuff that was effective in a fight back then is the same stuff that's effective today, okay? If we're talking about fighting, if we're talking about a fist fight, an MMA match, 28-year-old Helson, I literally would bet every penny I own that he would obliterate this Talk Jitsu guy, okay? Now, I don't know who the guy is.
Jordan Preisinger.
Okay, so here's the deal. Helson would be a problem for the very, very, very best fighters on earth today. Hickson, transport him here. He would be a problem for the very, very best fighters on earth today. Okay? Royce is a different animal. Royce was not the athlete that Hickson and Helson were. Royce was not one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the world when he was fighting in the UFC. When Royce was fighting in the UFC, it was jiu-jitsu versus the other arts. So Royce was not a world-class athlete. Helson and Hickson are world-class athletes. They're different. They come from a different blood. I mean, they have their daddy's blood, but their mama's blood is different than Royce and those other guys, some of those other ones, right? So he doesn't know what he's talking about on several different levels. But when you come down to fighting, there's a whole lot more than just the art. But in this case, Helson's jiu-jitsu, 100% would be effective in MMA today. No doubt about it. Now, bro, anybody can get online and talk trash, and it is what it is, right? As far as I go, okay, I'll just say this. Like, number one, my jiu-jitsu is pretty modern as well, right? Like, I have 100% old school Helson Gracie jiu-jitsu, but we have current world champions, sport jiu-jitsu world champions at our academy. And our jiu-jitsu is very, very, very modern. So, as far as I go, like, I'm not, I don't engage in trash talk. I'm not trash talking any blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? But like, you can sometimes be careful what you wish for. So, and I'm not the guy. I'm not getting on line and talking trash and this and that. I've fought my entire life. And, if the only way I'm fighting today, because I pretty much, I run a jiu-jitsu academy where we teach young people and old people alike how jiu-jitsu makes their lives better, how it develops so much confidence that they don't have to fight, but if they do have to fight, they're going to win. And, in order for me to fight now, it's going to be a legit self-defense situation, or I'm going to get paid a lot of money to fight. And if old boy wants to set up something where I can make a lot of money for my services, well then, hey man, I'm down for that.
There you go.
I told him that was pretty much an absurd thought, and that I would be willing to, do a match, and that we would love that, very respectfully. We would love that. We would do that in a heartbeat, but it would need to be a no time limit, an old school type situation. And we're jiu-jitsu guys, so we should be able to do that. And I don't think that that's a disrespectful thing. We're on a slightly different mission, Roger and I, trying to roll it back into the old traditional, old school. And I have a question about that. What would you say is the line where standing up or defending the honor of people crosses the line to just being disrespectful?
Man, number one, there's unless somebody is like what they used to call a shock jockey, right? Like where they just want to say outlandish things to draw attention to themselves, to build followers and all that kind of stuff. And in that case, man, I don't have any use for those guys. Like I don't have any, I'm not even going to, like this dude's a nobody. You know what I mean? Like somebody that gets on there and is disrespectful like that. Not so much to me. Like, you disrespect me. You say whatever you're going to say. Show up to my face, and talk trash to me and act a fool to my face. That's a whole different thing, And even then, I'd be like, bro, like, why? You're a jiu-jitsu guy. I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. Like, what's the point? I'll buy you a beer. Let's go drink a beer together. You know what I mean? Like, what's the point? We're supposed to be on the same team. Because I know who I am. I know who I am. I know my capabilities. I know who I am. But, when you start talking about disrespecting the forefathers of the art that you're making money off of, man, that just kind of makes you a piece of trash. Like that really does. That makes you, if you're disrespectful about the pioneers of the sport that you're making money off of, and if you're doing podcasts or whatever, you're making a living off of, it's kind of your livelihood, then you're just a piece of trash, and I just don't have any use for those kind of guys, Like Keenan, man, all I've heard about him was that he just gave his opinion on, that he thought that the jiu-jitsu, and I really think his was based on ignorance. I don't think he's ever felt what their jiu-jitsu felt like. You know what I mean? I don't think he's felt what it's felt like. Because anybody who's felt what their jiu-jitsu's felt like, certainly when they were in their prime, man, they just have a different perspective on it. It's never anybody who's trained with them. It's never nobody who's ever trained with those guys talks trash about them. It's always guys on the interwebs, talking trash from afar. So.
Yeah, nobody's ever popped up and had a video of like a Gracie challenge and said, now I know that there's that one with Hoban, Robin losing that fight, but Nobody popped up with a video and said, hey, here's me kicking Hickson's butt, 3 or 4 times.
Right.
And that doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
But specifically, would you say it's allowable or it's okay for a jiu-jitsu guy, if somebody is talking trash about the Gracie family, Helson, Hickson, Elio, to say, hey, to correct them? Or is that disrespectful, or is that totally acceptable to correct them?
And I think, yeah, bro, like, I would, my take on it would be, I think it's 100% acceptable to, I mean, you could use the word correct, but at least, talk to them and I would say try to give them some wise counsel. You know what I mean? Like, if I saw somebody or heard somebody talking disrespectful noise about Helson, I would say, hey, my friend, I've been training with Helson for 30 years, okay? I trained with Helson when he was in his prime. And I've trained with guys who are modern world champions. And I can assure you that his jiu-jitsu 30 years ago was world-class jiu-jitsu, right? And as far as MMA goes, it 100% would transfer to today. And he would be, now I know you may not understand that, but at the very least, those guys are the reason you're doing jiu-jitsu today. You know what I mean? So just put some respect on their name, man. That's all. You don't have to like them. You can still have your opinion. You can respectfully disagree. That's fine. I don't care. But just don't be disrespectful. You know what I mean? Don't be disrespectful to those guys.
And, exactly the approach that I use every time.
And here's the thing, man. Here's the problem, though. There are people out there who, man, when they grow up, they're just not raised right. I mean, they're just not raised right. They're not raised to know what respect is, and they didn't grow up respecting their elders. They didn't grow up respecting history and tradition, and they've never thought about the fact that they could be wrong. You know what I mean? Most people, when they go into an argument over something or a debate, they never even consider the fact that they could be wrong about it. And so these guys that question these old Helson, Hickson, these old guys as jiu-jitsu, man, I mean, they just don't know. They just really don't know, So.
And, just to stay on that for just a half a second, as far as sportive jiu-jitsu goes, if you had the chance to roll with Helson a bunch of times, if Helson or Hickson was to roll with Gordon Ryan, how do you think that would go at their primes? They're both at their prime.
Bro, I'd like to see it, I mean, here's the thing. Jiu-jitsu, the sport jiu-jitsu, allows things now that they didn't do back then, i.e. heel hooks and knee bars. So I'd like to see those matchups. Now, the reality is Gordon is, 40 pounds bigger than both of them. And Gordon is, a generational top athlete. And Gordon's jiu-jitsu is freaking world. I mean, he's got beautiful, perfect jiu-jitsu. So, I mean, 185 pound Gordon may beat a 185 pound Hickson. He might beat a 185 pound Helson, or he may lose to both of them. You know what I mean? Like we talked about before, man, when it comes to fighting, you got to fight the fights. I mean, they're both, all three of those guys, you know, and Henzo. And, you know, Henzo, I don't know that Henzo is the athlete that Helson and Hickson is, but I would say he's pretty close. So, I mean, you know, I'm not going to, you know, you got to believe what you see when you watch Gordon. You know what I mean? Like he's 100% legit, man. Like his jiu-jitsu is 100% legit. So, you know, I mean, you're talking about the very best in the world. So who knows? But it wouldn't surprise me if Helson or Hickson, either one, beat him, you know, like, and then the flip side is true as well. I mean, Gordon's jiu-jitsu is as good as there is on the planet today. So, and here's the thing: if Gordon Ryan beats Hickson Gracie in his prime, what difference does it make? Whoever is out there cheering for that, Gordon Ryan beats you too. You know, I mean, he beats everybody else on earth. So, what difference does it make if he could beat those guys? I mean, it doesn't make it doesn't make your jiu-jitsu any better. You know, your jiu-jitsu is still trash. Just because Gordon beats Hickson doesn't mean all of a sudden your jiu-jitsu, because Gordon's a modern guy and you're a modern guy. Hey, when Hickson was competing in jiu-jitsu, there was jiu-jitsu guys who had black belts who they were trash then too. You know what I mean? Just because they competed when Hickson competed doesn't make them any better. Just because Hickson was great, and likewise, just because there are modern guys now competing, when Gordon's competing, just because Gordon's great doesn't mean that they're not trash. You know?
Yeah.
So is that your question?
Yes, absolutely. If you were to flip the switch a little bit here, though, and make it in – now, I'm not going to change the fighter, though. Make it into a no rules, no time limit fight. Gordon Ryan, but then insert Elio Gracie, little Elio Gracie in his prime, but it's a no rules, no time limit fight. Does the jiu-jitsu play a big enough factor that Gordon still has a gigantic advantage, or does Elio's mindset and skill, you know, win that fight?
Nah, Gordon's jiu-jitsu is world class, and he's 225 pounds. And when I say world class, it's otherworldly world class. I mean, he's 225 and he beats other world class dudes that are 300 pounds. So he's just too big and too technical for Elio's jiu-jitsu to overcome that. I mean, you know how it is, bro. Like, when you know the same stuff, the bigger, stronger, more athletic guy wins. I mean, when you know the same things. And, you know, Elio just, I mean, there's nobody on earth that I have any more respect for in terms of fighting than Elio Gracie. But the bottom line is, if Elio Gracie, I mean, if he fought Gordon Ryan, I mean, he's fighting another dude that is 225 pounds, that is, like 80 pounds heavier than him of solid muscle, who also has not just world-class jiu-jitsu, but otherworldly jiu-jitsu. So I don't see how Elio could win that fight. I think Gordon would break him physically. You know what I mean? I don't think he would break him mentally, but I think he would physically break he'd break his arm or choke him unconscious.
So we have a Kimura type situation now. If Elio was alive and in his prime, and Gordon Ryan was who he is, that's exactly the person that Elio would challenge.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that, you know, so, and the flip side is, hey, you never know. That's why you got to fight the fights. You never know. Elio might catch him with something, you know. You never know.
Absolutely. Roger, I know that I took over there.
No worries.
To your question.
No worries. It's funny. I earlier you were talking about different students you had and reasons they got into jiu-jitsu, and you mentioned a specific student, but then the subject got changed. I was just curious if you remember what that student you were talking about and what their reason for getting into jiu-jitsu was.
Yeah, man. He's actually a former SEAL, and I just talked to him today, as a matter of fact. We've been trying to I didn't know him in the SEAL teams. A mutual friend introduced, made the connection, and his son's wrestling, and he's been wanting to get into jiu-jitsu. And when he was in he did not train when he was in the teams, and his reason, one is for exercise and to be able to kind of keep up with his son for a while, you know what I mean? And then kind of third is kind of he's like, man, I'm probably never going to have to use it for self-defense. He's like, it'd be nice to have it if I did, but, so like that's the point, I didn't, I started training in jiu-jitsu when I was in the SEAL teams because I knew it would make me a more lethal warrior on the battlefield. Okay. And then back then I saw, MMA came along and I thought, man, I may fight MMA. Right. And then I got out and, man, it was I enjoy jiu-jitsu, man. I enjoy training. I enjoyed competing back then and, enjoy rolling. But that's not, whether or not that's why somebody wants to start jiu-jitsu, it doesn't matter, there are, it benefits everybody in all walks of life. And, so it doesn't matter, like this dude, the podcaster, right? Like, it doesn't matter how good he is. It doesn't matter, if his jiu-jitsu's junk, it doesn't matter, man. Like, if he's a jiu-jitsu guy, we should all be on the same team. You know what I mean? Now, I understand if, guys, sometimes guys who aren't, super, just kind of satisfied with where they're at or super confident, they'll find stuff, like I said, shock jockeys, they'll find things to draw attention to themselves, or they'll talk trash about, other people in an effort to lift themselves up. But like, right. That's not the goal, man. Like, we should all be, just like your guys' mission with this podcast, like, we should be on the same team with that dude. You know what I mean? Right. Because what that guy would discover is that if he lifts those old guys up, then he would rise with them. You know what I mean?
Very true.
And, he can improve his stock by saying, hey, you know what? The pioneers of the sport, they built it to what it is so that now he can take it, and man, we can keep elevating. We can take it to new levels, new heights. And that's what the old guys want. I'm not old, but I'm 53, right? So, and I'm still strong and fast and capable and all this. But like my academy, like I want to leave, like when I'm, and obviously I'm on the decline, but when I really feel like I'm on the decline, as far as my performing, like when it becomes very, very, very noticeable, okay, I'm not going to start talking trash about the old guys. I'm not going to start talking trash about the young guys, the new generation. Like, I want them to pick it up, take them and carry the mantle to the next level. You know what I mean? Yeah. And part of that is being innovative and new techniques and new training methodologies. Part of that is that. And there have been great advancements in jiu-jitsu since the beginning. There have been. There's no doubt about it. And the flip side, there are still things about the old jiu-jitsu that are just as applicable today as they were back then. And so, like, that's what I want the students that are coming up after me, man. I want them to take kind of what I've done, and man, take it to new heights and carry the bar, make the bar even higher and keep doing it. But when they do that, I hope that they've learned how to do that and be respectful, you know, and that's the thing, man. Like that's, you know, that it's just about respect. There's no reason for us not to be respectful to each other. You know, it's like everything we've been talking about, the SEAL teams, right? You could take the modern SEAL teams, and it's not apples to apples because there's technology involved, and it's not just humans putting their hands on each other, okay? But the reality is that, a modern Navy SEAL theoretically should be a better operator than a Vietnam-era Navy SEAL, okay? Because theoretically they're going to be bigger and stronger on average. They're going to be better equipped. They're going to have better technology. They're going to have, if they have chosen to participate, they're going to have better hand-to-hand combat skills. They're going to be better marksmen because they've had more time to train, you know. And so, but with that being said, you're never going to see a current young Navy SEAL talking trash to an old Navy SEAL going, oh yeah, if me and you, if we were same, man, I would crush you. Well, I'm so much better than you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They're the same. And it's the same thing with jiu-jitsu, man. Like, you're never going to hear me saying, man, when I was in my prime, if you could have transported me back, I would have smashed this guy or that guy or what, you know, like, it's just, I have too much respect for myself to disrespect those other guys like that, you know? So anyway, that's, but, you know, and again, that's just my take on it. So.
Well, you touched on something, about having different goals for like your students. I'm thinking of like whenever Joey trained with you, like what were your goals for him, and what are your goals for different students in the academy?
So we have some guys that want to be world champions. Okay, so I'm going to do. Matter of fact, one of my purple belts right now, it's a young guy. You know, he wants to win a world championship. So we're about to start on that road with him, man. And you know, and then we have, some guys who, you know, I talked to a kid yesterday who wants to go on the SEAL teams. I've got guys that want to be Rangers and Green Berets. And so for those guys, I want them to learn jiu-jitsu. I want them to get good, but I want them to stay healthy. You know what I mean? So like for them, I want them to be phenomenal at the combative side of jiu-jitsu. They don't need to worry about sport jiu-jitsu. They need to be great at the fundamentals of jiu-jitsu and go into the military healthy. We have, you know, a lot of kids. So for the kids, I want all the kids to, number one, build incredible self-confidence. Right. And that comes from the ability to defend themselves. So they've got to learn to defend themselves. They don't have to be super competitors. I don't care how well they do against other kids in competition. Some of the kids who don't want to compete, I don't care how good they do in class against the kids who are competitors. I care about them learning jiu-jitsu from a self-defense perspective, so that it builds their confidence to a degree that they're capable of accomplishing anything they want to accomplish in life. I want their jiu-jitsu to make them confident, humble, and gritty so that it transfers to every other area of their life, right? So that's for the kids. For the competitive kids, man, I want all the same things for them, and I want them to win tournaments, man. I want them to win, I want them to have world-class jiu-jitsu and come home with freaking gold medals and swords and belts and all kinds of stuff. For, we've got quite a few moms that are training. So for the majority of the women, man, I wanted to empower them. I want them to be healthy and fit, and I want them to have that same kind of self-confidence that those kids get, to know that, hey, I can legitimately defend myself and survive against a bigger, large, stronger attacker. And I want them to be able to take that confidence into every other area of their lives. And the same is true for the men that come in who, we have some men that compete that want to win world championships. We have some that have won world championships, Pan American championships, International Open championships. I want them to have the best, most modern sport jiu-jitsu they can have. I want everybody that trains at the academy to have self-defense jiu-jitsu, so there's that. And then we have guys I've got one guy, he's got a pre-existing neck injury, but he's never rolled at the academy. I don't care if he ever rolls at the academy. He's learning jiu-jitsu. If he got into a fight tomorrow on the street, he has jiu-jitsu. He's never rolled, but he's drilled. He's done rapid mastery drills, drill. And if he is exponentially more capable now than he was when he came through the doors of the academy. And he's fit, he's strong, he has a great time, he loves jiu-jitsu, trains with his son all the time. His son's a hockey player. His son is an athlete. I want his son to have that same kind of self-defense jiu-jitsu, so it builds his confidence, his humility, all that, so it transfers to his hockey, which is his first love, so that he can become a pro hockey player if he wants. You know what I mean? So, like, all these, and then we have men who they're just scrappers, man, and they don't want to, they're not going to compete. They just like to come in and scrap. And those guys come in and we meter it all. We kind of blend it all together. We take care of each other. And, at the end of the day, man, everybody, this is a big misconception, I think a lot of people believe that the guys who train jiu-jitsu, fight MMA, compete, that maybe even make a living off of it. They feel like, or run academies, they feel like jiu-jitsu benefits them more than it benefits the soccer mom who does jiu-jitsu. And man, that couldn't be further from the truth. Jiu-jitsu benefits the average mom who trains twice a week. It benefits her just as much as it benefits the competitor that trains 6 days a week and wins world championships. It benefits her in different ways, but the benefit is just as real and just as valuable to her as it is to that competitor. And so, I think I know a lot of places miss kind of that whole phenomenon, and I just want to make sure that we don't. That's kind of my goal, is to make sure that, we make a way to give everybody that walks through the doors the best jiu-jitsu we can give them, and leadership skills and abilities for the kids and the adults, man, so that they're respectful, strong, solid, good people that are leaders, self-confidence, self-discipline, and that it benefits them, man. It makes them better people.
Yeah, there's something for everybody.
100%. Absolutely. And it all comes from the same place, man. And people just don't understand how it does benefit everybody the same.
Well,
or equally. It doesn't benefit them all the same. It benefits them all equally.
Right. They're all gonna get benefits from it, but in different ways.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I remember last podcast we talked a little bit about basically the evaluation, like when Joey first started training with you, and I know that he has like worked with me on specific techniques myself. I was just curious, like what are some of the things that you worked with him on and helped him improve, or maybe some of the things that you thought were already pretty sharp, and some things that you wanted to sharpen.
So, Joey, it was very evident that, his fundamentals are solid, were solid. I mean, before he got to the academy, his fundamentals were very solid. It was clear that he had trained, so who'd you train with before you came to the Invincible, Joey?
I had trained at the Gracie Academy. I had trained at Gracie Baja for the longest amount of time, and I'd also trained at Gracie University since they opened. But I trained at Octagon MMA, John Machado, and the most recent one was Wolfpack MMA.
Yeah,
so that's like a ton.
Yeah. Yeah. So I could, like I said, man, I could tell that his fundamentals were good. And obviously, man, like every one of those schools are top notch schools, right? And so, but with him, he's not very big, man. And like when he came to the academy, like right off the bat, I think everybody was bigger than Joey, right? Like everybody, maybe Cody was about your size, but Cody, is younger and is, he's like an explosive kind of a super athlete, right? And so, Joey, he just had to tighten basically just had to keep getting better, man. Like there wasn't any one aspect, especially, you were a purple belt when you get there, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So like there wasn't any one aspect that I looked at him and said, okay, we got to fix this or we got to fix that. It was just, we just got to make everything tighter. We got to add more pressure. You got to be able to generate more pressure. You got to be able to survive more pressure. We just kind of got to sharpen the teeth. You know what I mean? And but there wasn't any one thing. He didn't have any big glaring holes or anything. It was just all right. He came in. He was a good purple belt, fundamentals. Small guy, so he's got to be tough, and he's just got to get better and better and better, and that's what we did. So, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, and I'm kind of curious, like what the criteria is, because I'm a purple belt. I want to progress. Like, what is like some things in the purple belt journey that just have to be there? What's like a key ingredient that just has to be improved?
So, a body of knowledge, man. Like most purple belts really know a lot of jiu-jitsu already, and most purple belts today know a lot of jiu-jitsu because they've trained a lot. Like, how long have you been training, Roger?
8 years.
Okay. So, like you're close to the end of the purple belt journey. You know what I mean? Like you're close to being a brown belt. So like you're not, and that's the other thing. Okay. There's a difference between all things being equal. There's a huge difference between a purple belt that's a four stripe purple belt and a guy that just got his purple belt. You know what I mean? Like a couple of years in there that make a big difference. So, a lot of jiu-jitsu. And you're young and athletic, right? And that is the story of the dangerous purple belts. The dangerous purple belts are young, athletic, and they know a lot of jiu-jitsu because they've been training for 8 years. And as far as there are not a million, there are a bunch of different types of games now. You know, you got guys that, in my opinion, I want my purple belts to be well-rounded. I don't want them to be a purple belt because they're leg lock masters and they go to competitions and they just leg lock everybody. But if you get mounted on them, they can't escape. Or if they get mounted, they've got to dive off. They can't submit anybody from the mount, so they got to dive off and leg lock somebody. You know what I mean? Like that's so by the time somebody's a purple belt, they should have a large body of knowledge in all of the positions. Like, you know, now they're not going to be, they haven't perfected all of them, obviously, but that's the thing. They should have a large, and as a matter of fact, I would say, like, I want my purple belts to have sequences of moves. So in other words, if somebody, you know, if one of my purple belts, I want them to have a plan, man. Like, I want them to, from the guard, this is what I want to do. Systematically, I want to drag the arm, take the back. If they do this, I do that. If they do this, I do that. But I want them to have a sequence of a plan of action from the guard. They get mounted. I want them to have a systematic plan from there. If they get inside control, a systematic plan. If they get on the back, a systematic plan. You know, a systematic plan from pretty much every position, right? I think that's the thing that really differentiates purple belts from blue belts. You know, blue belts have kind of learned the language. Purple belts are starting to formulate, you know, pretty detailed paragraphs, so to speak. And then, but yeah, man, that's what I want for my purple belts.
And
those guys are hard to deal with, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those are the guys that do that. Those are the guys, man, that give black belts a hard time, you know, because they're young, they're athletic, and they are good at their sequences from those positions because they practice them a lot, man. And it doesn't matter if you're a black belt or not, dude. Those purple belts give black belts a hard time.
Oh, for sure. And in Joey's case, he did all the things that met this criteria that you wanted to happen.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah. And how old are you, Joey?
I'm 42.
Yeah. So Joey did that because, like, when he was training over there, like, we would, like, for 1 month, man, we still do it, you know, and I think probably most of the good places do it, right? Like, we'll work from the guard and we'll work a sequence of moves, man, where we're, like I said, we're dragging the arm, or from the mount, man, we're working heavy on underhooks and heavy pressure into the S-mount armbar series. They do this, you do that, whatever. And, yeah, man, Joey was doing all that. So, absolutely.
Perfect.
So, you know what, Roger, I did one other question that I had and just popped in my brain. Professor, it seems like the first maybe 30, 25 times that you rolled with me, and I told Roger how that you would go behind that curtain thing and put on your gi, and that was pretty much like the sign, the signal that suffering is about to happen. But for the first 20 or 30 times that we rolled, you let me work big time, let me work, and then intensify the pressure to a complete fever pitch. So was that the plan? You were just wanting to slowly bring me into it, or what was the plan there?
So, I want, when I roll with guys, okay, and this is true, I mean, when they first, it's probably the time frame is a little different with different people, right? But, so like with white belts, all right. So when I start rolling, I never smash white belts, man. I let white belts do whatever they want to do. Whatever the moves we work on for that class, I put them in those positions. I let them do the moves. You know, if they did everything the way they're supposed to, then I'll tap. Okay. They never do. I mean, like put them in the right positions. They just never do everything. In order for me to tap when they get me in something, they have to do it perfectly. It's got to be perfect. Okay. So, but I don't ever smash them. I don't ever do anything to them until or unless I see that maybe they're a little cocky. Maybe they need to feel like, hey, you know what? There is something to this. And so then, and I don't beat them up or anything, but I just do jiu-jitsu and I'll submit them gently. And then it's kind of a reset. Then we'll go back and I'll let them do whatever they want to do. They do, and we just so I do that with them. But my goal is 100% to help them get better, man. Like that is training, right? Like that's training them. And I do that same thing with everybody up until, I develop a relationship with them, and then sometimes I smash them, and sometimes I just keep playing with them and let them smash me. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just so, like, there's some blue belts that man, like, when I roll with them, I'll let them smash me for a while, and then I'll smash the piss out of them. You know, we're good friends. We've got a long relationship, and I know they're not going to quit. You know, and then there are other blue belts that I don't have as good I've got a great relationship with all of them, but maybe they're just not quite bought in all the way yet, or maybe they're not quite as mentally tough, and so I never smash them. I don't have to. I got other guys that smash them. You know what I mean? I train them. I let them go with me. I let them do whatever they want to do, and I'll tap to those guys more than I tap to anybody else, because I'll do the same thing. I'll let them do whatever they want to do. I'll put myself in bad positions with them. I'll let them get me in good positions. And if they do things perfect, which every once in a while they do, then I'll say, okay, you got it, man. Good job. Purple belts, I don't ever let them tap me unless they really, really like they got to be thinking just perfect. Because otherwise, if you do, then otherwise they really think they really did it. You know what I mean? Like they have a hard time understanding, hey man, he was letting me work. And so, there's a couple, we've had a few that, and you were one of them, right? Joey, when you were a purple belt, we rolled and rolled and rolled. I'll let you do whatever you want to do. You did great stuff. You had zero ego. You understood what was going on. You understood that we were training. You just had you had the perfect training mentality. And so that's why our experience was the way it was, and there's another guy at the academy. There's a couple other purple belts that I have that are kind of the same way, great. And then there's some other ones that, man, probably not going to let them, it's probably going to be a long, long time before they, get to the point where they really, really understand what's going on, So does that make sense?
Totally.
Roger, yeah. It absolutely makes sense. Absolutely makes sense to me, having experienced it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any, bro. I don't. Kind of going back to the statement earlier. Like, I know exactly who I am. I know exactly what, and so my goal at the academy is 100% to help people get better at their jiu-jitsu, and sometimes there's a couple of guys that every time I roll with them, man, like I smash them. I get on them and I make them feel everything. And they can take it and they get better. You know what I mean? It doesn't discourage them. They get better. And they ask me what I did and they get better and better and better, and they're getting good, man. And then there are other people that they're just not to that point yet, and they're different type of athletes. And frankly, everybody, you can't do that to everybody. Everybody can't take it just physically, man. Some people, they just break easier,
Yeah, I wanted to jump in just for a second. That I would say that kind of subconsciously, there's a point where everybody knows, or at least we both know that I wouldn't want to win or I wouldn't want to catch the submission if it wasn't 100% real. And so I don't want to win with an 80% or 90. I want to for real win or for real lose. And either way, I don't care. I don't make it a big deal. But then you can really open it up and put the pressure down, because the result is going to be that everybody's happy, a lesson is learned, and then we go right on.
Yeah, 100%. I think making a comparison to some of the other sports, so like jiu-jitsu is super young in America, right, compared to the other sports. Well, compared to football, for example, like in a football practice, football players, they don't win every rep in practice. Most of them don't. Most football players don't win every rep in practice. It goes back and forth. But when a football player loses a rep or a play in practice against the offense, that's you expect it. You know what I mean? Like, you don't ever want it to happen, but you don't quit the sport over it. You know what I mean? You don't say, man, I suck, I got to quit. Most people don't. And it should be that way in jiu-jitsu, man. Like, it really should be about the learning in class. Every role, honestly, every role that I do with people, I ask them, how do you want to start? And if they don't instantly, have a position that they want to work on, then I'll say, all right, you get mounted on me. You start mounted on me, or you start side control. Like, I'll put them in a dominant position on me, right? And so I want them to be able to attack. And bro, if or I'll say, get on my back. You start on my back with your hook, and, if you do that enough against your best guys, man, you're going to get caught. Yeah. And that's part of the learning process, And I read, or I saw a video, I think it's Gordon Ryan talking about that. They said, how often do you tap in practice? And he was like, well, if you're training right, you ought to tap quite often. And they looked at him like, what are you talking about? Because if you're training right, you ought to be putting yourself in bad positions in practice. And you put yourself in bad positions in practice enough against quality training partners, and eventually they're going to catch you, And, eventually. It may not happen today. It may not. But if you're a good instructor, if I'm a good instructor, and I'm training my guys, and I'm truly trying to make them the best they can be, eventually, my advantage should get narrower and narrower and narrower, right? I mean, theoretically. Especially as I age. Now, don't get me wrong, bro. Like, I'm trying to delay that as long as possible. Like, I want to be the baddest cat in the room forever, But at the same time, I want to be the best instructor in the world. So if I'm training these young, strong dudes as well as I can be, I know at some point, right? the martial art jiu-jitsu is the only sport out there where like that's hard to make that transition. You know what I mean? Like no football coach in the NFL, none of those players are going, well, I'm not going to listen to him because I can outrun him. I mean, that's foolishness. You know what I mean? I'm not going to listen to him because I'm stronger than him. You know what I mean? Because when he played football in his day, it wasn't as good as football we play now. I mean, you know, but for some reason in jiu-jitsu, it's hard to get past that mentality, you know. And so, anyway, all that to say, when I roll with our guys, my goal 100% is to train them to get better. If that requires me to let them whip me, I'll let them whip me. If that requires me to let it go back and forth, I'll let it go back and forth. And if that requires me to just smash the snot out of them, then I'll try to smash the snot out of them.
And I have to say that was that's what I hate the most, and because of that, that's what I love the most, and that's undoubtedly why that's what I got a lot of times. But it's true that I would rather have that than anything. I'm rolling around with like a black bear, like a grizzly bear. I can't expect to not get bit, or I can't expect to not get scratched up. If that's the worst that happens, you won that fight. So
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So that's the way.
That's you know, and the flip side is true too, man. Like we got big, strong, freaking young, athletic guys that are learning. I mean, every day they're getting better and better and better. And you know, for the other guys in the room, you know, be thankful that you have those guys to train with, because man, if you got those kind of guys to train with, then it's making you better. If you survive, it's, you know, it's been done right.
I'll tell you what, from purple to brown, I feel like that my jump was bigger than from white to purple. So, you know, that's sure in part to those roles. And by the way, I have to say to the listeners that I don't believe that I got within a country mile of like submitting you or anything really like that. But I felt like from purple to brown that my brain was able to start getting like deeper into the technique. And I felt like that right there is a victory. If I can get, you know, I'm thinking of the north-south choke or something like that. If I can get like the third or fourth little step, that's pretty good. That's, you know, I feel like this is a victory where I could get on to the first step, you know, 6 months ago.
Yeah, man. And I'll tell you, you know, like, and you see it a lot nowadays, but like I was talking to the students today, you like and this is anybody, right? And in wrestling, they call it chain wrestling, where you have 8 moves and you go for the first one, it doesn't work, you immediately go to the second one, that one doesn't work, you immediately go to the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and start back over. 8, start back over the first. And for jiu-jitsu guys, you know, I'll send y'all. I've got a little formula, a diagram thing that I use, but essentially it's, you know, different moves for every position and what you can do, what you can use. And, you know, and y'all may already have that. I know some people make flow charts and all this. This is pretty simple for me to look at, but basically, you know, I want all my guys. I want to be able to have, well, I just want them all. I'm not going to say that out loud over the internet because it's a competitive deal, but I want everybody that I train to have sequences from every position, right? Like I want them to have a plan from every position, and then plan A, plan B, plan C, you know. And I know that sounds simplistic, but too many people don't do that. They don't spend the requisite amount of time formulating a plan from each position and then practicing all those sequences, you know. And, I mean, there's a lot of science behind it. It's neural programming essentially. But man, when you get that, the more, you know, and kind of back to Roger's, question, that's what I want purple belts to have, you know, by the end, at least by the end of their purple belt journey, you know, by the end of their purple belt journey. So.
Yeah, I'd love for you to send that our way.
Yeah, I will. I'll send it to you. Pretty simple. When you look at it, it's pretty simple, but you go like, yeah, man. And it just helps you clarify what you know versus what you're good with versus what you're having success with. You know what I mean? And it shows you where your gaps are. So I'll send it to y'all.
That right there, Professor, I think that's the difference from like beginning blue to end of blue, or beginning purple, end of purple, is that the opponent trying to deal with those series of techniques is so much outgunned and so out of their element, that's why those higher belts classically win, is the techniques are just, there's too many available all at the same time, and it's impossible for them to pick the right one when they don't know any of them.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Roger, anything else for the Professor? It's getting late here.
Yeah, this one ran a little long, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna we'll get it out there as soon as possible as well. I'm not sure, we got a couple to deal with or to edit in the meantime, but we'll get this one sent over, the raw form, Professor, just for you to check out whenever you get a second, whenever you get some time. We'll take care of that. But Roger, anything else from you? I think the Professor has given us a lot to think about.
Yeah, I don't want to push my luck. Maybe we could do another episode here in a few weeks or something. That'd be great.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Professor.
100%, bro. Hey, I appreciate y'all. Thank you for having me. And yeah, man. Hey, jiu-jitsu for life, right?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you, Professor. Have a good night. Send our love to the Academy, and thanks so much for talking to us tonight.
I sure will. Hey, adios, guys. Y'all be careful.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Just us on.
Sweet, man. So let's see. 244. Is that longer than the first episode?
Yeah. Way longer. Like, our average episodes are like 2 hours, maybe 2 hours and change. I know our last one ran long, but this one went we talked about so much stuff.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy is in every single one of them episodes so far, except for, I guess, Carlos Diaz, but I did really dig into kind of the topics that we were going to hit on, but I didn't write down any notes. But this is the only one that I literally didn't write down anything. I just, whatever came to my mind, I had already, I already knew that I was going to start with that. But that's the reason that it went so long, is because we're talking about things that actually happened. And, whenever you're referencing a real life event, there's always so much surrounding that is important. If we're talking about it, it's important. So, the details and building the context of the whole thing, that's what really fills out these episodes. But wasn't it interesting to hear the stuff that I have told you so many times to be verified by the man himself?
Oh, my favorite was when he talked about a lot of parents thinking they're going to karate school, because that's literally what I thought I was going to when I went to the first gym that you and I trained at.
I remember I was going to tell him, but then I decided to go on to the next thing. But I was going to tell him, I remember that there was one time we had a parent up there, and it was me somehow this day that was teaching the class. Like, I had the keys, and the parent they came in. I guess they didn't talk to anybody beforehand, maybe, but they came in, they had walked into the mat room, and they were asking where does the kicks come in, or where do we break boards? Like, it was all questions centered around traditionally what you would think of like as karate. And they were also, I guess, not native English speakers. So I bet you Ashley will remember this too, because of course she was there, and it was a unique deal. It had never happened before or since. Not this specific one, but so we spent like 20-30 minutes explaining jiu-jitsu, what it was, the history, the origins. It was me and Coach Charlie, at the time, Coach Charlie. And we literally spent between when the end of the first class happened to the, I guess, maybe 15 minutes into the second class. So that would have been like 35 minutes. So we were just explaining jiu-jitsu to this person that had wandered in with their kid to sign them up for karate. So, that happened at the academy when I was there. So that was a unique experience. I don't think I've ever told you about that. That was a strange deal. The one thing that we thought was, we'll definitely get them to sign up now because they're here. Like, they were trying to go to karate, but they wound up at the best jiu-jitsu school in the world. So, of course, once now they're in the building talking to the jiu-jitsu guys and at the best jiu-jitsu place in the world. So the chances that you get one over at that point is like overwhelming. But the lady was just like, okay, well, no, we really want to go to karate. We really want to find a karate school so we can do karate. And that was like, she was absolutely 100% like, I don't want him to do jiu-jitsu. This doesn't look like what he needs to be doing. He needs to be in karate. So we lost him. We lost that one.
Well, maybe they'll come back. You know, you always got to be hopeful, you know.
Hey, they might be there now, man. As far as I know, I don't think I ever talked to Scott about that. I'm sure that Charlie did. I'm sure Charlie talked to him about that. But man, good grief. I had so much fun at Invincible Academy. Like, I'm just thinking about doing the classes that I would like always be, it would be me and Charlie teaching the kids, and we would use Blake and Hannon every time. And so they got good at being the bad guy, and they would be like, they know what's coming beforehand. And Charlie's like completely a perfect kids teacher. Like the expectation of what you would get. If you said, I want a guy that lives up to the standard of what Elio Gracie would want in somebody teaching kids so that they'll train jiu-jitsu for the rest of their life. They'll love jiu-jitsu. And that's what you get from Charlie. He's like like silly, he's jokey. Sometimes we would pull out all these like play swords that I think were made of pool noodles or something like that. You should see it, man. I learned a lot about teaching from Charlie, that whenever we got those swords out, at first I was just going to be like, okay, I got my sword, like just swinging it. I'm going to smack some of the bigger kids. I'm going to whack them around, whatever. But then I looked over and Charlie grabbed his out and like straight out of a movie, like Braveheart or something. he wasn't, he acted like he was so serious, and he just screamed like a guttural, just, yeah! Just screamed at the top of his lungs, and then charged at those kids.
That's gotta be so much fun.
Yeah, it was like they were really in like an old medieval fight, and Charlie had lost his mind and he was attacking. He's like, I'm here for the mortuaries. I've come to save my family or whatever. Like, he's just so on in character.
That's great.
And those kids, and the music was always super loud, so they're like trying to talk over the music, and rather than be like, y'all don't scream, we're like, what did you say it to my face. Like, just crazy funny. And those kids absolutely loved those classes. So, man, and the adult classes, then it flipped around. The adult class was like, what would you, if you said, so I want you to get a legit Navy SEAL who cares about details, who really, they can't live their life without it being the best that they can possibly do. And if you have that person, and you gave them, implanted in them the best jiu-jitsu in the world, in history, what would you expect to get in a jiu-jitsu class from that individual? Well, this is what you would expect. This is what you would get. It's just like, I miss that place so much, so freaking much. It's like, Disneyland. And in my brain, as a jiu-jitsu guy, every little thing that I would say, like, oh, this place needs to do this. Oh, I wish they would do that. They actually should be doing this. They're missing out on that point or whatever. Like the jiu-jitsu guys, we're all looking for some kind of weakness or something wrong. And every little detail was exactly like tuned to the exact perfect, like pitchfork, boing, perfect pitch. So, I just loved every freaking second of it, every beating. And I say beating, that I was there to specifically to get that kind of attack, or have no choice but to deal with what I tried putting off for so long. Is like, you're going to have to deal with the biggest, the worst, and I mean by worst, the most skilled, the people that are really on this earth to defeat you. That you're going to have to roll with them, and you can either just be defeated again and again, or you can work on what your problems are. And that's what I did there. Like, I addressed the actual problems that I had, that I tried to avoid. I wasn't able to avoid them because he's too tied in. He's as an instructor should be. He is like embedded in everything that's going on. He's not like, okay, everybody roll, go ahead. No, he's like, okay, Jim, I want you with Carl. I want Dave. I want you with John. And he's thinking like, I want this experience for that guy. I want this experience for that guy. Not like potentially like the color belt saying, which one of these guys could I victimize right now? Or, like, who can I roll with and have the closest, role, but still be able to, to be too much for them. No, those are like the weaker thoughts that the advanced belt has. What we should actually be thinking is, who in this room right now can challenge me, can really put me to the test? Who can defeat me? Because that's who I need to roll with. And to do that, every freaking roll, like if you got 6 rolls, you're not choosing your 6 rolls. You're being matched with 6 people that are specifically matched with you because they're on this earth to kick your butt. So that's for me. That's because that's what I needed, and that's what
Same thing with me. When I was there, I never trained with anybody who, like, I could kick their butt. Like, I think I was about to roll with a beginner, and then Scott had me roll with somebody else.
Yep. He is very present in what's happening, and not because he used, we specifically asked about holes in the game or flaws or what have you, but he's looking for opportunities, and those opportunities could be as simple as the ones that I've just listed right there, that you're choosing people that are your, they're the people that you should choose last, or they're not really helping you. They're just, kind of your dessert. And you probably know what I mean. Like
that's exactly how I felt about the white belt. I was looking at him like he was a dessert, and I was like, oh, I can have some fun, smoking this guy. Nope. And then I get like a really good guy and I get smoked.
Right?
Yeah.
That's it. Is that there's a time for sure when you're like, you know what? I really have put myself to the test today. I've suffered. I've been the bottom. I rolled with good people. So I can just chill this time and let me get a white belt or a blue belt or whatever, and just kind of roll them up. And at Invincible Academy, when that time comes, you're still being chose your partner. So even when the time comes that you feel like you earned it, you're still getting the one that's going to test you the most. And that's not a choice that probably, I would say, majority of jiu-jitsu guys make. Every single time you choose the person that is the absolute hardest roll, no way. No, I know because I am one. And I know that we have these occasions where we're like, well, I am a purple belt or I am a brown belt, so let me just kind of flex on some people today and show them that I am a purple belt or a brown belt, and show remind myself, remind the room, like these thoughts, these ridiculous thoughts, but we absolutely have them. And I'm just going to I'm going to prove it today, and just crush some people with my high level jiu-jitsu. Well, that's true, right? You thought stuff like that?
Yeah, especially when there wasn't especially when it was like you and I running the class, because it was kind of up to us who we rolled with.
Yeah. And when it's up to you, then it's just not going to be what you need every single time. It's going to be what you want every single time. And that may coincide with what you need every so often. You'll still get better, but when it's the most hardcore one, or like you go from like hard to harder to a bigger, like I just rolled with a very good base conscience, like a wrestler type guy, maybe a 200-pound wrestler type guy. And he was like just putting intense fire on me for 6 minutes. And I am dead tired. Well, now I'm going to get the guy that's like 6'4", 285 pounds, like just the even bigger, the dude that's just going to power your arm to the ground. And then you're like, well, I mean, I'm already exhausted. That's not really no, you just got put in that scenario that we all talk about. Like, like we're just going to fight until the end and no time limit. Well, that's what you got. You are exhausted and a big guy just came in and pushed your arm to the ground. So, if you do that enough, then you get better, quicker, and the things that you're weakest at are exploited, and you can't help but address them, or you just keep getting destroyed in the exact same way. So that's part of why from purple to brown that I had a big jump in everything, like everything improved. And I even feel like whenever I watch videos from like late purple and early brown, that I feel like that I can, the thing that changed, one of the big things that changed, and we're going to go just a second here, Roger, but it's because it's super late. But one big thing that changed is that I could manipulate my like action and reaction to such a degree that I can appear to be completely clueless, or I can also like turn it the 180 and appear to be very knowledgeable of what is happening. I can make myself have absolutely no balance, absolutely no physical ability, like just have no clue, and then turn around and roll with somebody and keep we both turn the technique up very high and just live in that world. Absolutely no crazy behaviors whatsoever. And those two opposites, like we talk about it in teaching, that you play these different roles or whatever. You can be like a little kid, you can be a big guy, you can be a skilled person, you can be somebody that doesn't know anything. But can you do it with such efficacy that it is imperceptible, that you are truly able to, that you have such command over your behavior, that your response, physical response, that you have full control over what is happening. Like you are truly able to do what you want to do. And that's what white belts think they're doing. Like what I want to do is I want to do this arm lock and spin, and then bam, I want to do the arm lock. But that's their mind. That's what they think. And then they do some crazy ass thing. You know what I mean? Like some crazy thing. So, going from like, I think that and I can't possibly do it, to I think this and I can do exactly this. That is a thing that I think is like, it's not ever talked about, but how could that not be an important skill to have as an advanced jiu-jitsu person, that you have actual control over your behavior or your fight potential to a degree that you can be who that student needs you to be, like exactly perfect. And if a sport jiu-jitsu person is listening and they're like, what does that even matter? It matters to us because we care to give that, whoever we're teaching or training with, we care to give them the best possible thing the most truly, like the most accurately, the most honestly, and the most perfect that we can give it to them. We don't want to give it to them a little bit wrong or something that there's a potential. You repeat that thing a bunch of times, and then you're going to end up losing because of me. So it really, really matters when you think about it, because we are influencing other people. You're probably concerned with influencing yourself and your instructor. But I don't know. That's what I think. Anything else, Roger?
I think we covered a lot of ground today. A lot of topics.
I think so.
A lot of good conversation.
Yeah, and you're gonna be here in person with the Jiu-Jitsu robot is gonna be one machine here in a few days, huh?
Yeah, kind of like a robotical horse.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking. A robotical horse. Yeah.
Man, it's late. I'm tired. I'm getting a little loopy, so I better jump off this thing.
Yeah, man. You do that and send that thing over as soon as you can, because I'm interested to hear this whole thing back.
Hey, yeah.
Man, it's been a pleasure, Roger, again, to have this conversation with Scott, and you be able to be there for it. I bet you're gonna, just from the conversation, you're gonna improve. Your jiu-jitsu is gonna improve in some way.
Well, this time I wasn't running a fever, so I actually contributed to the podcast.
Big time. It was awesome. So I think it's going to be an awesome episode, and the Jiu-Jitsu robot will be continued next time.
Hopefully the next episode is we shoot some video. It'd be like a live in person.
Heck yeah, we can do that. Maybe some technique. We'll do something for sure. We'll film something.
All right, brother.
So, all right, man. Until then, or I'll talk to you tomorrow, so it doesn't really matter. But
yeah.
Enjoy your night and rest easy, okay? Get some sleep.
You too, sir. And good night to everybody out there. I wanted to give a shout out to my buddy Paul. I was literally just talking to him about taking classes, and so yeah, I'm looking forward to training with him, and I told him about the podcast, so he's probably listening to this one right now, and he checked out the last podcast that we had with Scott. So I just want to shout out to my buddy Paul.
Heck yeah, he's going to be able to train with you, like.
Yeah, no, he lives in San Antonio, so.
Heck yeah, Paul. Well, Paul, I'll tell you, you can't possibly be in better hands than Roger. I promise you, I guarantee it. You will get the experience, the jiu-jitsu experience that you deserve, that you hear about, the real deal, the best that there is. You'll get it, and that's what I guarantee. Roger, I don't even have to have you agree with that. It's just true.
You know it.
Hey, have a good night, Roger.
All right, you too.
All right, later.